Thank you. It is truly a delight to be able to sit with all of you today, and practice is such a gift in these times. Last while, I have for sure experienced a lot of feelings of depletion and exhaustion and just a sense of feeling really just done in, as one of my teachers would call it. A sense of wondering how to keep putting, one foot in front of the other and moving forward. And sometimes when I sit down to practice, it sort of feels like here we are in this moment of beautiful practice, and yet there's these other things in the background that are here. And some of you feeling that level of exhaustion and depletion, and others of you may not be, which is also totally great. But I really want to just honor that in these moments when we can feel like we're just overtired, overstretched, really just done in, practice in my own experience can be an incredible refuge of support as we are navigating times that we live in, right? And as we're navigating all of that, whether it's the collective level, whether it's the internal level, whether it's personal, the interpersonal level, there's a lot arising in our world right now. And in moments like this, I have found in my own experience that practice is here, and practice can really support in navigating these times, and even really deepening my own internal experience of these times. So I want to offer us a little bit of a teaching, which will then kind of dovetail into a practice that I've been working with a lot in recent months. I have found to be extraordinarily supportive, and I hope that it will be supportive for many of you as well. So I want to invite a screen share now, please. Fabulous. All right. So I want to just speak a little bit about a blessing that is found in the morning liturgy every day of the year in the traditional Siddur. It's often chanted. We're not going to engage in chant practice today because of the technological challenges of Zoom, but there are many, many beautiful chants, and maybe we can talk about that in the Q&A. This particular blessing, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tahorahi, it is of the traditional Siddur. It's said in the morning. I have in my own experience of different Siddurim, it's sometimes in different places, but it's generally in the Siddur before the morning service gets started officially. So this is like one of the first blessings that we say in the morning traditionally, and it's become really an integral part of mindfulness practice in a Jewish context. And I find it to be one of the most beautiful invitations for remembering our own divinity, and being able to really be in a place of deep loving awareness. So I want to talk us through the first line or two of it, and really allow that to then kind of move us into a bit more of a guided sit. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tahorahi. My God, the soul that you have given to me, or even we could even translate that even more deeply, the soul that you have implanted in me, it is pure. And there's something I want to just take a moment to let us really marinate with this statement of truth that we have the opportunity to say every day. The soul you, God, have placed in me, it is pure. No matter what is arising internally or externally, we get to return in every moment to that neshama tahora, to that pure soul that we have been given, and that returns to us every day. And those who may be familiar with the prayer Moda or Moda Ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam, shehachazarta bi nishmati v'chamla rabba emunatacha. Thank you, living and eternal one, who has returned my soul to me. Great is your love and faithfulness and compassion. That's my sort of expanded translation of it. But this prayer, Elohai Neshama, really dovetails with this idea that Our soul, in a certain sense, leaves us when we sleep, not in a like a theological way, but there's a certain sense of sleep being a little bit of like a mini death. And then we are grateful when we awake in the morning and the soul has been returned. And in this particular prayer, we're being reminded not only has our soul returned, and not only are we grateful to the living and eternal one, the Holy One of blessing, but that neshama that the divine has given us, it is pure. It is it is our deepest essence, our true nature. It's really our true nature, and we get to return to that. And so, bearing that in mind, we continue to really explore God has created it, atabarata, atayatzarta, the divine formed it, atanafachta bi, the divine breathed it into me, really allowed for it to be within me. And that creates a deep connection between us and the divine that flows through us, that chiyut, that divine life force that really flows through us. And the last piece we'll look at is the final and the final note here, va'ata mishamra b'kir bi, and that it is guarded, that the divine guards this true nature of ours, our deepest essence within us all the time. There's a certain kind of way in which it is with us, it's here, it doesn't leave us. And in moments of deep trial, I have found that being able to remind myself of that true nature, that Elohai Neshama, that pure divinity within, that pure soul within, has been a tremendous, tremendous support and really a lifeline because it reorients how we might choose to think of ourselves. And it's not to say that, on the relative level, right? On the relative level of the relative plane that we live in the world that we actually all live in, of course, we are grappling with a lot, and our human family is known for behaving in ways that are not aligned with the reminder that we have every day that we have a pure soul. Right. And we have to deal with that. That's the actual world that we live in, and we have to act with wise and skillful means. But on the absolute level, right, the notion of being able to return to our true nature every morning, being reminded of that is a beautiful reorientation to the truth of our experience moment by moment. That this pure divinity, this pure soul that lives within each of us, that's guarded, that's been created, that's been formed, it's here. It is here for us. And in moments when things feel deeply unstable for some of us, or maybe some of us are feeling a sense of overwhelm, or maybe for any number of reasons, whether it's collective, personal, small, large, all of the things that are arising in the world right now, the notion of having that neshama Torah, that pure soul that we can take a reminder to return to, that that's our deepest essence, that that's our true nature, right? And I want to just let us for a moment bask in that. Thank you. Great. Thank you for taking that screen share. I want us to just take a moment to bask in that reminder and that felt sense, right? There's a certain way in which we might say, Elohai neshama shenatata bi horahi. My God, the soul you have placed within me is pure. We can know that on the level of the intellect. But I want to actually allow us now, just for a moment, to bask in the felt sense of having that neshama Torah, just allowing ourselves to whatever extent is available. I want to invite us, if this feels right and appropriate, to just take a moment or two to really just be with that on a felt level. to really be with not only is our neshama tahora, not only is our soul pure and our true nature and our deepest essence, but it's guarded, it's formed, it's created, and it's breathed into us. All of those distinct things that can we really tap into a felt sense of that? Can we allow ourselves to feel into, to know intimately that that essence of who we are, our divine nature, is right here? It's unearned, it's unconditional, it's right here and available for us. It's inherent to who we are as human beings. And it's inherent to the work that our tradition, the Jewish tradition, calls us to be partners with the Holy One of Blessing in the work and renewal of creation. I want to give us a little bit more instruction for helping us to kind of deepen our practice with this awareness of that divine nature that we all possess, that's truly who we are at our deepest depths. And I want to do so kind of by inviting us to engage in a cultivation practice in which we're going to offer ourselves deep compassion as a way of reminding ourselves of the truth of our deepest nature and as a reminder of the ways in which we are beloved. This prayer, Elohana Shema, that we just discussed together, is one of the many expressions in my mind of the sense of belovedness the divine in the Jewish tradition extends to us. And the way that we can cultivate that for ourselves will take a few minutes, really holding the bit of the teaching that I've just offered about the divine nature and this prayer, and really deepening it by offering ourselves compassion through phrases of blessing. And I'm going to offer a couple of those briefly. I'm going to really invite us to focus in on one or two. And as we're doing that, the intention is to really bridge between these blessings and the deep felt sense that we've been exploring around the core of who we are as having this divine nature. I find in my own practice that when I can cultivate that knowing and that loving awareness through blessing, it can feel even deeper than simply it kind of existing on the level of the intellect, which it's very easy to do in my experience when I'm looking at a siddur. It can feel like sometimes things kind of get stuck in the intellect, and it's really helpful to take them out of that space and really move them into the heart space. And in that regard, I'm going to actually suggest and offer that you might find it supportive to first, we want to take a moment to settle into our posture for meditation, if you haven't already done so, as we move into the formal bit of our practice together. You might feel the sensation of the feet on the floor or the body on the chair that you're sitting on, or if you're lying down or standing, noticing contact between yourself and the surface that your body is on, noticing the support that that surface is giving you, noticing that you are being held by that surface and knowing on a deeper level that we're being held by thousands upon thousands of miles of ground beneath us. And as we are continuing to really feel into the truth of our deepest divine nature, the purity of the soul that we have been given to us and that is guarded within us, we can really enhance that that felt sense through offering ourselves blessing that can allow a cultivation of a place of deepest belovedness and compassion that can flow beautifully from the knowing that the neshama that was implanted within us is pure. So I want to offer a couple of phrases now, and you are invited to choose what resonates. You are invited if you would like. We're going to be working with the self today, but that may not feel available, and that's fine. If that does not feel available, you might choose a benefactor, someone beloved to you. It could be a beloved friend or family member or pet, or it could be a blessing of cultivation for a wider group of people. So the phrases that I will invite for our sit today will be, of course, invitational. And you are invited, if you find it supportive, to place a hand on the heart and a hand on the stomach. I have found that this can be a very supportive posture and it can really allow us to deepen into our heart center. I'm going to offer us today the following phrases. May I or may you be blessed with compassion. May I or may you be blessed with ease. May I or may you be blessed with joy. May I or may you be blessed with love. May I or may you be blessed with compassion. May I or may you be blessed with ease. May I or may you be blessed with joy. May I or may you be blessed with love. We'll sit together now for a few minutes and I will repeat those phrases in a couple of minutes as we are deepening into our sit. You may choose to stay with one of those qualities, or you may choose to go through the series of four. Or if there's a quality of cultivation that you're working with, you may choose to use that instead. We'll sit together now. May I or may you be blessed with compassion. May I or may you be blessed with ease. May I or may you be blessed with joy. May I or may you be blessed with love. As we reach the final minute of our practice, I want to invite us to just deepen our blessing for ourselves or for others. And we do this not because we think it's going to change others, but because it allows that space within, that pure divine awareness, to really blossom. And it can protect that space within ourselves that really is connected to the deepest nature that we are. I want to invite us now in our own time and pace to move out of formal practice and back to our shared sacred Zoom space. And I will turn it to Josh now to lead us in Kaddish.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And we will hope you can stick around for some Q&A and conversation. And if you can't, we wish you Tzeitchem L'Shalom, farewell, and hope you'll be back with us live on Monday. But in the meantime, we have the opportunity now for those who are reciting Kaddish in memory of loved ones to do so. We'll open up the chat and you can put the name of anyone you are remembering today in the chat if you wish. And Natalie will put the text of the Mourner's Kaddish up on the screen. Thank you, Natalie. And you're invited to unmute if you'd like, and you can join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal,
Because being exalted and hallowed throughout the world, which he created. And these God's voice, we got soft and sweet, and so you now like, we fuck his right from you.
Ba'agala
Adala,
Yisman
Yisman,
Kariti.
Fruit, Amen.
Hey
Hey,
Shvenu
Rabbi,
Barak
the
La'almu
rock,
La'almenu Mayim.
Yishara,
Yitbarach V'yishtabach
Yishbach,
V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar
Yitadar,
V'yitale
Yitoled,
V'yitambal
Yitolash,
Shvei V'kudsha
Yitudisha, Priestess,
Le'elan V'kol
Elam, Kol,
Birchata
Bishata,
V'shirata
Vishirata,
Tushbechata
Krishpakata,
V'nechamata
Venechamata,
V'amiran
Daniman,
Ba'alma
Deval,
V'yimru
Yimru,
Amen.
Amen.
Hey Shlama
Mama
Rabba
Rabba,
Shemayim
Shemai,
B'chaim Aleinu
I'm
V'al Kol
Elaine,
Yisrael
Israel,
V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mramav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom
Shalom,
Aleinu V'al Kol
Hallelujah, Kol
Yisrael V'al
Yisrael,
Kol
Kol
Yoshvei
Yoshvei
Tevel.
Tevel, Yimru, Amen.
So thank you everybody. So we will bring Lauren back up on the screen as well. And Lauren, thank you so much for your Torah today and for the practice that you led. And I think it's so helpful just to ground in starting really at the very beginning, as you said, like Elohai Neshama is one of the very first things in the liturgy that we say in the morning when we wake up. And so I would love to invite, folks, if you have a question, please just put all in the chat, all caps question, so we can identify that readily, but also just also reflections, on how that was for you. There's already one question that Mira already has here about, is everyone's neshama essence the same, or do we each have a neshama that is unique to us? Just that's a great question. I wonder how you approach that, Lauren.
Yeah, that is a beautiful question. And I really would love to be able to sit with that for a while. But on, the top of my head in this moment after this practice, I would say, I think that um, the deep nature that we all are, like we all have that deep true nature within us. And the Hasidic tradition talks about that a lot, right? But also, I think that every single neshama that every person has is unique. There's an idea that's very famously said in the Mishnah and Sanhedrin, um, that it's where the idea comes from that anyone who destroys a life destroys an entire world. The broader sense of that teaching is that, you know, that the divine stamps each of us with our own unique seal, that every single person is unique and that no one is inherently better than any other human being, which is deeply countercultural, right? This idea that no one is better, no one is superior, no one is inferior. We are all stamped with these unique seals by the divine. And that is emblematic. I think that shows up in our own unique soul. I think each of us has a really unique part of ourselves, but we're ultimately all deeply connected, I think, on the broader, like absolute level. And that's what I was trying to bring us into in our practice is that the Jewish tradition reminds us, right, that the truth of our very existence is that we have this pure soul that we return to. And I find in my own experience that that allows me to feel when things around me feel so deeply unstable and so deeply um, hard and difficult, like the difficulties that I'm experiencing, that many of us are experiencing. It's a reminder of the truth that this is here always.
Um, Thank you. Oh, then okay, there's some comments here. Yeah, I think that also in addition to that teaching, Laura, I mean, one of the things that is so interesting about that teaching that you mentioned, right, that each of us on the one hand has, is equal in the sense that all of us have that neshama, right? All of us have that piece of divinity, and yet that is also unique within each of us, right? And so there's a paradoxical uniqueness and equality that happens, that simultaneously exists. So sitting with that, I think to me is really, really helpful, and you can lean, and I feel like leaning on that at different points, right? Sometimes it's it's a I've raised two teenage sons, and I have another one who's coming up, about that age. And one of the classic moves during teenagerhood for most of us is like, I'm having this thing happen that's never happened to anyone before ever in history.
Right, exactly.
Right? And it's like, well, actually, it may feel that way, but lots of people have been through whatever struggle you've probably, you're going through, and your experience for you, it's like they talk about on reruns. If you haven't seen the episode, then like, right. So it's new for you. So I think, yeah, how we lean on that in different ways at different times, which is beautiful. So yeah, um, a lot of wonderful, uh, nice comments here for you, Lauren, as well in the chat. Uh, yeah, I'm just looking through here. Okay, great. Um, I wonder also about you had two parts to the practice. So you started today with Elohai Neshama, and then you went into more of a gratitude or a benefit, thinking of the benefactor, thinking of um, uh, uh, sort of a metta practice, right? We could call. Um, And I'm wondering if you want to say more about how those might be related, how the offering of blessing for others might relate to our own experience of that neshama that's within us. Is that, yeah, just if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, as I was thinking about today's sit, I was trying to think of what kind of practice could emerge from a teaching around the reminder of that neshama Torah, that pure soul. And what I realized for myself when I sit to do a blessing practice or a metta practice, um, I find that really grounding in the reminder of my own belovedness allows for the cultivation of blessing. It's hard when we aren't grounded there, right? It can feel like, if we aren't tapping into that sense of having that belovedness. And the reason I use the word belovedness is because I truly believe that actually that is what Elohai Shema is all about,
Mm.
right? It's actually it's a love letter, right? It's a reminder that we are beloved. We talk about that a lot with Ahava Rabbah, which is another prayer right before the Shema, where that talks directly about this great love that the divine loves us with, and it's this beautiful, beautiful idea. But I think on an even deeper level, Elohai Shema does that. So for me, the way that those two things connect is that through that cultivation of belovedness, by grounding in the reminder, in the felt sense of that pure soul, that then allows me to then bring that either to myself, right, through the cultivation of blessing practice, or to other people. Knowing that, it's not about this is the intention is not that by blessing other people, that's going to somehow change them. Particularly, we didn't do this today because I've been really focused in my own practice on focusing on the self and the benefactor in the last couple of weeks. But there is, of course, the practice of finding a difficult person, and it is not the most difficult person. I think it's always important to give that disclaimer. When you're working with a difficult person, it's someone who you're annoyed by, but it's not the most difficult person either in your life or in the world. So let's be clear about that boundary. But I find that really reminding myself of my true nature actually allows that blessing practice to happen for me. And that can have a real effect on my own being. I think that is the intention of the practice. It's not about, it's not about, okay, if I do this long enough, this other person will change or whatever. Maybe, I do believe that we do put energy out into the world with everything we do, but I really think that ultimately it's about strengthening our own inner spiritual core and doing that by really engaging in well wishing because we want to remind ourselves of our deepest and truest desires for ourselves in the world and reminding ourselves of who we are at our core when, especially at times when it feels like that is not reflected back.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, yeah, and I feel like you're sort of elaborating on that same teaching of like, if we see this in ourselves, then it makes it easier to see it in others, right? And if we can, and there is that profound link because if we're all created in God's image, right? Then we see when we experience, when we apprehend um, that divinity in somebody else, we can, experience that in ourselves and vice versa, right? When we're opening up that chesed towards ourselves, we're opening up the chesed towards others. It becomes easier, hopefully, for that to flow, right? To flow through us. Yeah, I think that's a good sort of rejoinder sometimes when we can beat ourselves up or others can also say like, well, meditation just, feels like navel gazing or something,
Mm-hmm.
and no, I mean, if we do it right, there's a channel that we're opening up that is a flow that extends out and between, two in between us. And I think that's really crucial. If it's only centering on us, then we're probably doing it wrong, right? I think that's
Yes.
important to note.
Oh, absolutely. And if I could say something in response to that,
Yeah.
right? I was on retreat all of last week. And one might assume, right, if anyone has sat retreats before, they can be incredibly amazing and wonderful experiences. And also if you're sitting retreat, it can be extraordinarily difficult because you're working with the mind, right? There's an idea, I've heard it in like popular culture. You're going to go on a meditation retreat, you're going to bliss out, it's going to be great. Well, anybody who's sat at a retreat can tell you that's not how it works. But again, to what you were just saying, right, about the navel gazing, like the sense of like, oh, you're meditating, that's just, focusing on the self when things in the world are so hard. How could you do that? Right. And actually, I think that really what it is for me in my own practice is it's about remembering who I am fundamentally when the world around me, or the world sounds like a large, when external circumstances mean that we often forget who we are. And that's why I think that reminder of the purity of our neshamot is so important. The purity of our souls is so important. And if we are only focusing right on ourselves, it's kind of like Hillel's teaching, right? If I am only for myself, who will be for me? But if I'm not for myself, who am I, right? It's finding that, it's finding that balance. And hopefully when we're off the cushion, the practice can actually be with us in how we show up for and with other people. Because especially the Jewish tradition is a tradition that is very much of the here and now. We really elevate the mundane, right? We make it sacred. We are a tradition that I think is very engaged in the work of everyday life.
Mhm.
And we do have our moments of separation. Of course, we have Shabbat, which is a time of deep mindfulness, engagement and practice, if we choose to use it that way. We have the holidays, all these things. But fundamentally, we are about elevating the everyday. And I think that formal practice, when taken off the cushion, can be helpful because it allows us to fill our own well, fill our own tank so that we can be present and available in a less reactive way for other people.
There was one other question that came in from Cheryl here just in our last couple of minutes. How do you understand the experience of the soul in prayer and the experience of the soul in meditation? That's a big question.
Big that is I love that question. That is a big question, one that I would certainly want to sit with more. Answer it in this way, right? I think for me, my own experience of meditation and prayer can be deeply connected, and they can also be deeply separate depending on the kind of practice we're engaging with. So I'll talk for a minute about Jewish prayer experience in a more in the kind of synagogues that I go to, which are, have a particular kind of orientation to that, which tends to be very based on the liturgy of the traditional prayer book, and They are, they're congregations that really anchor that way. And sometimes when I'm in that kind of a space and can sort of feel like I can fall into the place of, okay, here I am, I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to do this next thing, and sort of like a very rote practice. But I really believe that part of what we are invited to do in terms of our own soul's experience in prayer is to actually slow down, which is again a piece of wisdom from sitting practice, right? Where we can slow down and actually be with the words, which is what I wanted to invite us into in our teaching today of like really, it's very easy for someone to very rotely say Elohai Neshamash and Atatabi Tahorahi, Atabarata, Atayatzarta, etc., etc. God, the soul you placed in me, it's pure, and then you created it, you formed it. Da, 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 da. What if we actually stopped and really took that in? I think that that is the deep intention of prayer, and the words get us there, but we have to be mindful for our own soul's well-being of not falling into the place of just going with the text and not pausing to feel into it, which is something that in my own practice I am deeply working with because I was trained actually to really go with the text and to not really feel into the soul.
Mm.
I think also, like in meditation, I'll say very briefly because I know we're at time. Um, there can be a way of deep opening when we show up to practice, even when we're not quite feeling it. It's like prayer, right? It's the intentionality, it's the choosing to arrive, it's the habitual, in a positive way, choosing to be in this practice, even and especially if we're not feeling it necessarily, because we're not looking for peak experience, we're looking for deep opening and deep being with what's arising and passing and being with the way our minds and our souls can open the more we allow ourselves to be with them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. This is really wonderful and wonderful reflections here. And we got a request just to leave the Zoom room open for a minute after we wrap up. So if you want to download the chat, people like to do that. So you can do that at the bottom of your screen. So those who want to do that. And in the meantime, want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and say thank you for being part of our community. And we look forward to being with you again on Monday. But I hope you have a meaningful holiday for everybody who is observing here in the US. Thank you again. We'll see you soon.